Convocation of Haile Selassie I. University. Leadership developed here should be guided by the fundamental values and moral power which have for centuries constituted the essence of our religious teachings. Discipline of the mind is a basic ingredient of genuine morality and therefore of spiritual strength. Indeed, a university, taken in all its aspects, is essentially a spiritual enterprise which, along with the knowledge and training it imparts, leads students into more wise living and a greater sensitivity to life's responsibilities. This is a most historic occasion for us, and for the entire Ethiopian people. Today, the first convocation of this university, affords us our first opportunity, as Chancellor, to address the governors, the faculty, and the students as a single group. We welcome and greet you all on this occasion. You who have in the past, either as teachers or students, been united in spirit although members of diverse educational institutions, are now truly united in this university. We welcome the members of the Board of Governors, who will direct the policy of the university. We welcome the administrators, who will provide the framework within which teacher and student alike will work. We welcome you, the professors, the instructors, the lecturers, to whom has been confided the task of leading our youth to higher levels of knowledge and learning. We welcome the students, our own and those from other lands, who will study here and from among whom will come future leaders. We may pause briefly now to inquire why this university is being established, what goals it is seeking to achieve, what results we may expect of it and what contributions it can reasonably be expected to make. A fundamental objective of the university must be the safeguarding and the developing of the culture of the people which it serves. This university is a product of that culture, it is the grouping together of those capable of understanding and using the accumulated heritage of the Ethiopian people. In this university men and women will, working in association with one another, study the well springs of our culture, trace its development, and mold its future. That which enables us today to open a university of such a standard is the wealth of literature and learning now extinct elsewhere in the world which through hard work and perseverance our forefathers have preserved for us. On this occasion we would like to remember with gratitude these fathers of great learning among whom we quote a few names such as Yard, Abba Georges of Gassica, Absadi of Insaro, Wolda Mikhail, Araya Nagashu, Mamir Akala Wold and Aleka Gabra Medihan. Music, drama, and other forms of art are rooted in the ancient history of our empire, and their development to an even higher peak of perfection will be possible in the atmosphere of a university. Ethiopia is possessed of an ancient literature, and its study can be fostered here so that the Ethiopian youth, inspired by this national example, may raise it to yet higher levels of excellence. The study of the heroic history of our empire will stimulate the imagination of budding authors and teachers. The understanding of that philosophy of life which is the basis of our traditional customs will lead us all to a better understanding of our nation and of our nation's expression through the arts. Spiritual qualities no longer enough. The immediate and practical aim of this institution obviously is to educate the Ethiopian youth and to prepare them to serve their country. Although such education may be technical, it must nonetheless be founded on Ethiopia's cultural heritage if it is to bear fruit and if the student is to be well adapted to his environment and the effective use of his skills facilitated. Time was when strength and endurance, courage and faith, were sufficient to make leadership equal to the task. But times have changed and these spiritual qualities are no longer enough. Today, knowledge and training, as provided largely in the universities of the world, have become essential, and today leadership and advancement, both national and international, rely heavily upon the products of universities. Even as Mr. Tubman, Mr. Unu, Madame Bandaronica, and Mr. Uthant were each educated in their own land. We trust that this university will produce leaders of comparable stature. In all countries of the modern world, special competence is required to deal with the advancement of agriculture, industry, commerce, and the civil service. That competence can be secured only through facilities which are provided in modern universities. We have often pointed out that the future of Ethiopia is largely conditioned upon accelerated agricultural development, upon mineral exploitation and upon industrial expansion. Her survival depends on these, but they, in turn, depend upon the competence of those who have received and who will receive the essential education and training. It is our confident hope that this institution, which has been planned for many years, will provide here, in our own land, for our own youth, the higher education and the specialized training required for such development. That which man dreams of and to which he aspires, unless fulfilled in his own lifetime, can produce no actual satisfaction to him. As for us, thanks be unto God that in the founding of this university we have realized a lifelong aspiration. Fundamental values and moral power. Considering the role of universities in a broader sense, we are persuaded that these institutions stand today as the most promising hope for constructive solutions to the problems that beset the modern world, problems which prevent the peaceful cooperation of nations, problems which threaten the world and humanity with death and disaster. From the universities must come men, ideas, knowledge, experience, technical skills, and the deep humane understanding vital to fruitful relations among nations. Without these, world order, for which we have so long strived, cannot be established. From the universities, too, must come that ability which is the most valuable attribute of civilized men everywhere, the ability to transcend narrow passions and to engage in honest conversation, for civilization is by nature the victory of persuasion over force. Unity is strength. No nation can divide within itself and remain powerful. It is this strong conviction that underlies the decision to plan for the well-organized and coordinated system of education, training, and research which a university represents. A university is the fountain of learning. Seek knowledge, and there you shall find it. Nor can we ignore the importance of the spiritual in this academic life. Learning and technical training must be nurtured by faith in God, reverence for the human soul, and respect for the reasoning mind. There is no safer anchorage for our learning, our lives, and our public actions than that provided by divine teachings coupled with the best in human understanding. Leadership developed here should be guided by the fundamental values and the moral power which have for centuries constituted the essence of our religious teachings. These are crucial times when nations rise against nations. Tensions increase, and disaster is possible at any moment. Distances are shrinking, peace and life are threatened by misunderstanding and conflict. Now is the time when the sincere belief in man's kinship to God must be the foundation for all of man's efforts for enlightenment and learning, the basis for all understanding, cooperation, and peace. We charge all of you, the members of this university, that these special values remain foremost, as a foundation for your knowledge and thought, so that the fundamental moral truths will buttress and support the whole structure of university life. Discipline of the mind is a basic ingredient of genuine morality and therefore of spiritual strength. Indeed, a university, taken in all its aspects, is essentially a spiritual enterprise which, along with the knowledge and training it imparts, leads students into more wise living and a greater sensitivity to life's responsibilities. Up to the present, technical training has been achieved through the College of Engineering and in the Ethio-Swedish Building College. These institutions, we trust, which are now merged into the university, will be expanded and developed so that the number of competent Ethiopian technicians will continue to increase. Education, an investment. Education is costly, and higher education is the most costly of all. But it is also an investment, a very profitable investment, and the money spent in coordinating, strengthening, and expanding higher education in Ethiopia is well invested. We are proud of our people's recognition of the value of education. Their concerted effort in the building of schools and other social activities is most gratifying. Educational institutions, unlike business enterprises, do not exist and operate for profits in dollars and cents. They exist to perform public services, and they are judged by the effectiveness and economy with which they perform these services. To the Board of Governors, to the administrators, we recommend economy, so that the benefits of the university can be enjoyed by as many of our young men and women as possible. Not a dollar should be wasted of the money so hardly earned and so generously contributed by our own government and by the governments of other nations. Plan thoughtfully, supervise closely, and manage economically, to the end that the greatest possible return may be realized in the preparation of competent manpower, in useful research and in training both technical and moral leadership. An immediate gain of the consolidation and coordination, the centralization of resources and operations, should be a saving in costs, and we urge all to cooperate fully in the attempt to realize this objective. Diligence is demanded in developing this university as rapidly as possible to meet the compelling needs of our empire. We would ask that extraordinary emphasis be placed on the training of teachers for our primary and secondary schools. The educational process cannot be a narrow column, it must be in the shape of a pyramid and broadly based. To provide this broad base, large numbers of teachers are required, and we have a duty to provide Ethiopian teachers for these schools. This is why we have established teacher training centers in Harar and other places. Need for various disciplines. The study of the humanities must not be neglected, and the College of Arts and Sciences must be strengthened and encouraged to develop its studies. These are the subjects which contribute most to the understanding and growth of our cultural heritage, and so assist in fulfilling one of the university's primary aims. These studies, which are concerned with human cultural achievements, human rights and duties, human freedoms, will enable youth to develop the understanding and judgment necessary to the formulation of a sound philosophy of life, to the making of wise choices, and to understanding what is involved in these choices. These young people face a world beset with the most effectively organized program of deceptive propaganda and of thinly screened operations ever known. They deserve the best that can be taught by their parents, by religious institutions and by the university, to prepare them for a wise choice among contending ideals. We would ask for the immediate founding of a graduate faculty of law, where our own graduates may be trained to enter the legal profession. Our empire has need, in its government, its commerce, for well-educated lawyers, and particularly for those who have been trained in their own university, in their own codes and customs. We would also ask for the organization of a faculty of medicine in the near future. The training of doctors is a long and arduous process, and this very fact makes it all the more urgent that our own faculty be inaugurated as soon as possible. While laying great stress on education for our younger citizens, we should not forget the obligation and the opportunity which the university will have with respect to the older citizens. As we study the plans and projects of this university, we realize that much attention is being given to the extension of its usefulness to the entire population, in the form of extension courses and lectures. This is according to our wish. Haile Selassie University should attempt, either at this main site or at a branch, to serve every qualified citizen who wishes and is able to avail himself of the resources of the university if he is willing to do the required work. Highest calling. We do not suggest that the list of needs which we have mentioned is complete, but they represent needs to which this university is seeking to respond. The heaviest responsibility will, naturally, fall on the faculty. Theirs is the job of training the minds and hands of the youth of Ethiopia in the knowledge and in the special skills. We may all be proud of the Ethiopian members of the faculty who have adopted this highest of callings and who have in the past and will continue in the future to render great service to their nation. The teachers who, in the past, coming from many different countries, have discharged the duty of educating Ethiopia's young men and women have earned our appreciation and gratitude and the appreciation and gratitude of all of us. Their example should spur on those who staff the faculty of the university to pursue their tasks with diligence and to spare no effort to ensure that their teaching inspires those who study in their classrooms. We sincerely thank Dr. Lucy and Matt who assisted us for many years with loyalty, devotion, and diligence in our efforts for the progress of education in our country and in the establishment of the University College of Addis Ababa, which is one of the affiliated institutions of the Haile Selassie University. Also we wish to remember the late Mr. A. Bess, who was one of those who have generously contributed towards the establishment of this university. All of you must maintain the highest standards in your instruction in order that the overall standard of this university may be second to none. Work together in harmony, as a team, in raising this institution to the highest academic levels. Each of you must do his part to contribute to the advancement of knowledge. You must above all be scholarly, for it is by deeds rather than by words that you can most effectively inspire your students to heed your words. Each of you should consider it his duty to pursue research in your own field of study, for you will thereby bring renown both upon yourselves and upon the institution. On many occasions during recent years, we have had the opportunity to speak to our students. We trust that our love and consideration for them and the deep interest which we feel in their progress has been felt and understood. Today, we have dedicated our home, which we received from our noble father, to their service, as a free gift to the nation, in the hope that we thus contribute to the opportunity for them to prepare for fruitful careers. We ask that each student who passes through these halls devote himself to the development of his mind and body, his mental and physical prowess, so as to be better able to serve his country and his fellow countrymen. Choose the field of study which best suits your talents, continue unwavering in your diligent studies, prepare yourself for service in whatever profession you may best be fitted. God grant you success. December 19, 1961. First Graduation Exercises of Haile Selassie University. Academic freedom, unless it conforms to the common good of the society in which it is expected to be exercised, is meaningless. Inasmuch as your country has provided you with this special opportunity, you are duty-bound, upon your graduation, to devote all your knowledge to the betterment of your motherland. What is expected of you is not academic achievement alone. In fact, as it is at the expense of the government that you have been educated, what is expected from you is commensurate with the extent of your knowledge. Education is not an end in itself, but an aid to assist you to distinguish between good and evil, between the harmful and the useful. Academic attainment, untested by practical experience, does not put one in any better position than that of the uneducated. Higher education entails comparatively higher responsibility or obligation. The purpose of university training is to produce people capable of achieving the progress and advancement of the nation. People of such caliber are expected to possess deep insight, high academic discipline and intellectual zeal to crave and search for truth, to know not only the causes but also effective remedies for any ills that affect the society. Unless one is guided by such noble objectives, to know, not only the maladies and how to expound them in vain words but also to present effective solutions and accomplish them, the possession of degrees alone does not classify anyone as fully educated. This is particularly so at this period, crowded as it is with continuous change and improvement. Moreover, since our educational system is essentially based upon the experience of other countries, the impact of modernization could create contradictions in our long-standing African traditions. We can only lay a sure and stable foundation towards rapid progress for Africa if we foresee the consequences of every step in its true aspect, and try to apply effective and appropriate methods to the problems of each country. Coordination necessary. We have never failed to observe this approach in all stages of achievement in the past. The very valid proof of this is that, although it is more than a decade since institutions of higher learning have been established in Ethiopia, there has always been sound cooperation between the administrative bodies and the students. The basis of this cooperation has been a collective effort for the common goal, the interest of the country always paramount. In the future also, it is our wish and determination that all higher studies shall be coordinated and guided by this university. Ethiopia is endeavoring, like many other countries, to achieve a high stage of technological progress. In this period of concentrated effort, she cannot afford to be handicapped by trivial problems based on selfish motives. The world today has become oriented to science, which has developed and progressed to a remarkable extent. Apart from the will of the Almighty, in this 20th century peace is determined by the will of the technologically advanced nations which dominate the sentiments of mankind by this privileged position. Intent on freeing themselves from such fear and insecurity, developing countries are using the level of progress of these advanced nations as the yardstick of their own progress. Developing nations, however, must first attain the basic standard of civilization by stamping out illiteracy through mass education. To be able to provide mass education, cooperation, peaceful coexistence and dedication to the common good are needed, because to arrive at higher scientific achievement, one has to discipline one's mental attitude and work with the aim of being the recipient of true knowledge. So far, the continuous cooperation of our people and the small cadre of elite we have produced have enabled us to devise successful shortcuts in guiding our country towards the goal of progress. One such method was, side by side with educational expansion, to launch simultaneously more than one program of development, by acquiring the services of skilled foreign experts and establishing industrial and other development schemes, without waiting until we had our own qualified experts. This university, which today is granting you your degrees and diplomas, is in itself the fruit of such combined effort which we have made in the past. The need for home training. You also know that to be able to have our own qualified people even before establishing local institutions of higher learning, we have been sending students abroad for advanced studies, and that there are many who have come back, and are rendering disinterested service to their country. One of the many fundamental purposes for which we have established this university is to have a greater number of qualified people who will augment the efforts of those already in service and of those who will come in the future, and, thus, to have a larger corps of trained people not completely divorced from our traditional heritage. Although a few learned people of our own are returning from foreign lands, we have foreseen and are convinced that our country's pace of progress can only be accelerated if there is a high influx of educated Ethiopians at one and the same time. Economically also, the expenditure needed to help a single student through higher studies abroad is quite sufficient to train a number of students locally. The reason why higher studies on a large scale were impossible in the past was mainly this: foreign training was very expensive. But we believe that it is clear to everyone that the establishment of our own university will give us great and valuable opportunities for expanding higher education in Ethiopia. In addition to this, it has a significant economic contribution, in that it helps us to save foreign exchange which we need for investment in other fields by avoiding the transfer of money abroad to finance our students studying in foreign lands. You most probably know that there are many great men produced in their own home institutions of higher learning. Inasmuch as higher education needs much money, the expansion of higher learning is one of the major problems facing developing and economically poor countries. Hence it can be said that their pace of development is highly determined by this single factor. In the case of Ethiopia, the only bearer of the torch of freedom for the rest of Africa in the past, to prove that she is not behind in the pursuit of modern education also, she is obliged to give opportunity of access to education not only to a few but to as many as possible. To this end, we are also quite aware that one university is not enough but many universities must be established in the future. The wealth of our heritage. The establishment of our own university is an effective aid in combining modern education with our noble traditions. Accordingly, it is our earnest desire that this university shall jealously guard the wealth of our heritage and pass it on to the succeeding generation with all its richness and glory as reflected in modern education. We say this with the understanding that any foreign training not assessed in the light of one's long-standing traditions, is detrimental to the well-being of the individual and the country, and in no way useful. We are confident, therefore, that this university will produce useful citizens by inculcating these views in the minds of its students. University training entails deep research and intensive studies. Any research should be related to the requirements and conditions of our country. We are very optimistic that there are many historically valuable things to be discovered. The students of this university are particularly lucky to be of school age at this particular time, and it is our hope that you will avail yourselves of this exceptional opportunity and contribute to the knowledge of your country in particular and that of mankind in general, by revealing the hidden, great, historic lore. Our university, therefore, has also a special contribution to make in this field. Academic freedom. One of the fundamental principles which the establishment of a university brings forth is the idea of academic freedom. Academic freedom, if used for the sole purpose of acquiring true knowledge, is undoubtedly the very foundation of the pillars of education, and it is universally recognized that it has been jealously guarded by all institutions of higher learning. An honest and persistent quest for truth is essential to the attainment of higher learning. In the past, both in our country and in the rest of the world, it has always been vital to lay down such prerequisites for intellectual achievements in order to produce philosophers, scientists, writers, and men of academic prominence in other fields. These prerequisites have also been the source of law and order. We have also clearly guarded this particular right of academic freedom by clearly stating it in all the charters issued in the establishment of our various colleges. But what we want you to understand very clearly is that academic freedom, if used for any other aim than that for which it is designed, will defeat its own purpose and be harmful rather than useful. Academic freedom, unless it conforms to the common good of the society in which it is expected to be exercised, is meaningless. Academic freedom affords a base for higher studies. And the aim of higher studies is to serve the society which is waiting for the leadership of the educated elite. Academic freedom that does not reflect this aim has lost its very foundation, for it is no more than an instrument for the protection of that particular right, dedicated to the true quest for knowledge that is useful for the society. Academic freedom, on application, should be tested always against the true end of satisfying the interest of the society. As a proof, if academic freedom as has been applied in one country is copied and fully applied in another, there would be a divergence, because the purposes and aims which it is expected to fulfill can never be identical, as the interests of the people of no two countries completely coincide. Apart from this, the interests of each country also vary with time and circumstance. An additional reason why academic freedom is held in high esteem and respect is that it makes possible for human beings to improve their ideas and improve their standard of living. For, without academic freedom, human life would remain hopelessly stagnant. However, to use this freedom, which is given for such noble purpose, to divide a people struggling to improve its life and thus make vain all its effort, cannot possibly be considered as a valid exercise of academic freedom. In some other countries, too, this is the precise manner in which academic freedom is practiced. Such attitude is in fact to undermine the wide application of academic freedom itself. Parental agreement on education. One of the important contributions we are dedicated to bequeath to our beloved people is education. When we first launched our program of educational expansion, it was necessary to struggle against the interest of parents in sending their children to school. But now the people, understanding the benefits of the program which we have been intent to prosecute for their own betterment, are not only cooperating in sending their children to school upon their own initiative, but many have expressed their desire to share in the great burden of educational expenditure which had fallen solely on the government treasury until today, some by cash contribution and some by building schools. This has very appropriately proven to us that the Ethiopian people, as in time of crisis, are still behind us and cooperating even in all our administrative efforts. This has given us encouragement and further determination to dedicate ourselves for the people to the extent that we feel it is for their lasting welfare. Hence we have decided to further expand education. With the help of a limited number of educated people, we have been able to reach the present point of progress. Encouraged by the continued service of this devoted cadre who have served us faithfully, we shall embark upon an extended educational program. Within a single generation, we have seen parents who had to be cajoled to send their children to school become so convinced of the value of education that today, those who have the means are assisting us in bearing the financial burden of education, and many of those who are unable to do likewise continue to stop us on our way to request that their children be given places in the schoolhouse. This is highly gratifying and is a source of encouragement for us to extend our efforts in education. We shall endeavor to work for the betterment of our people by applying funds from our private purse, utilizing simultaneously whatever assistance Ethiopia can receive from friendly governments. July 12, 1962. Cornerstone, Arts Building. Man cannot live by bread alone. Man, after all, is also composed of intellect and soul. Education develops the intellect, and the intellect distinguishes man from other creatures. It is education that enables man to harness nature and utilize her resources for the well-being and improvement of his life. The key for the betterment and completeness of modern living is education. But, man cannot live by bread alone. Man, after all, is also composed of intellect and soul. Therefore, education in general, and higher education in particular, must aim to provide, beyond the physical, food for the intellect and soul. That education which ignores man's intrinsic nature, and neglects his intellect and reasoning power cannot be considered true education. A well-organized education should not be one which prepares students for a good remuneration alone. It should be one that can help and guide them towards acquiring clear thinking, a fruitful mind, and an elevated spirit. The educated person that Ethiopia and countries of her level needs is not one who had stuffed bits of knowledge into his mind. The needed educated individual is one who uses the ideas he obtained from his lectures, books, and discussions to the best advantage of his own country and his own people. It is he who disseminates new ideas in harmony with the economic and social aspects of his own community so that fruitful results would be realized. This is the educated person who can show segments of knowledge he accumulated in his learning, inventiveness in a new situation. Ethiopia is a country with her own cultures and mores. These, our cultures and customs, more than being the legacy of our historical past, are characteristics of our Ethiopianness. We do not want our legacies and traditions to be lost. Our wish and desire is that education develop, enrich, and modify them. You all know the continuous effort that Ethiopia is exerting for the development of a profound and high-standard education. We need educated and trained persons, the administration for our people according to their custom. These are the needs that constrain us to provide, at all levels, education free of charge. And students, ever mindful of this privilege, should endeavor to recompense their country and nation. The opportunity for education, afforded to the few in our country, is not given to them for a fashion or a mode. It is given for a purpose, for a task, for a high responsibility, for full and exhaustive use, for the benefit of our country, and the coming generation. We have just explained to you the type of result, and responsibility that we expect from you students. It is on you, the members of the faculty, that we must rely for this result. We realize the heavy responsibility we have entrusted to you. We hope that you too, while believing and accepting your responsibilities as your sacred duties, will produce for Ethiopia persons who take pride in you and their education and are ready for the call of service. It is you who must mold the minds of your students that they may be wise, far-sighted, intelligent, profound in their thinking, devoted to their country and government, and fruitful in their work. It is you who must serve as the example. On their part also, they will have to learn not only formal education but also self-discipline that should be worthy to be inherited. May the Almighty God be with you in the fulfillment of your duties. September 23, 1963.